There are certainly levels to this game, make no mistake. There seem to be a substrata of experienced men on SR who are deliberately relapsing via the M and the O to avoid, which many people would look for, female attention. If you're unfamiliar, by the way, with the M and the O, it's the masturbation orgasm to the PMO analogy here. Of course, this is a non-optimal way to transmute your particular essence, but you're going to have to go through the trials and tribulations of this phenomenon when you first get overexcited with it. Look, don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people do explore this particular practice because of the aura of the esteemed man, of the Ubermensch, of this top 2 or 1%er. And I think part and parcel of this journey is to kind of fall victim to a universal karma, especially if you're maybe the type of individual who never got any attraction, maybe at school or college or university, and now you go through this period of detaching yourself from lust, from maybe a digital form of lust, and then the worst kind of things happen. The physical manifestation of lust comes and meets you. So the promiscuity, fling, carousel, this is one that, I'm not going to pretend like I'm up here on my ivory tower, that I did everything perfect, that I definitely fell prey to. Not so much promiscuity, but more the idea of getting to know somebody, maybe having 2 to 3 dates, engaging in intercourse, and then kind of getting bored, after that particular time period, and then starting the process over again when you have another encounter in the wild. And they're less cheap than maybe one night stands and things like that. But at the same time, I think you can become emotionally inept, numb, and a closed person if you go through this particular, what I call a fling carousel, which is a series of short relationships, maybe lasting maximum 3 weeks to a month, maybe before moving on to the next one after, 2 to 3 to 4 bouts of sexual relations with that individual. Yeah, that one can be very, very dangerous. Also, not attracting the right kind of individuals that you want. One of them, in my personal anecdote, being married women, or women who superficially market themselves as, let's just say, undesirable, as opposed to mentally unstable. Pervasive tattoos, pervasive facial piercings. I'm sure you understand the archetype I'm trying to delineate to you. And then dopamine-stacked substances. When you start feeling really, really good, you start to get these really just otherworldly thoughts about how you can start to stack this pleasure. And maybe you start pairing, weed with nicotine, maybe magic mushrooms with smoking weed, and then you're adding, something else into the equation, and then before you know it, you're lost down the rabbit hole. And one of the things that really helped me undo this particular cycle was understanding the consequences were far more severe as a man who was, let's say, for sake of a better phrase, sexually more powerful than the average man. And what I mean by that specifically is this almost infinite impregnation potential. And that kind of terrified me. I mean, not to be crass here, gentlemen, but after you experience sexual release, after, even something as trivial as 2 weeks of sexual abstinence, it's like the floodgates are open. It's like Pompeii. Anyway, so you start to understand your capacity for the first principle in creating offspring and ensuring your bloodline is is far more potent. And then you look at some of these, the promiscuity, the fling carousel, the married women, the succubus, and you start to realize, hey, I could have potentially had a kid with these women, which leads me to, maybe a very brazen point, but a point I think which it should affect you, because not only is it true, it makes logical sense, and it allows you to articulate yourself better through the male to female dating dynamic, which is only have sex with a woman you'd be willing to raise a child with. Now that, again, might be triggering for a lot of you, because then you start to realize, hey, 60 to 70% of the women that I've slept with, I wouldn't be raising no kid with them. Maybe a softer run-up to this is only have sex with women that you'd be willing to also offer exclusivity to. I think that one is a good starting point for most people, because when you think about what men and women protect in terms of a social dynamic, a romantic social dynamic in between each other, men typically control access to exclusivity, and women control access to intimacy, sexual relations. So in many ways, if a woman is willing to offer you intimacy, you should be willing to offer her exclusivity. But we all know that doesn't happen. But this rule, it really helped me articulate myself better in social dating dynamics, especially when attraction is very, very high. I also, what also really helped change the risk I was taking here was the fact that it's okay to enjoy the company of women and not sleep with them. It's okay to date women casually and not sleep with them. In fact, the irony is, when you move with that kind of intention, the opportunity for intimacy increases, because I think maybe there's a shift in your consciousness where she can sense that you're not trying to take anything from her. You're just there to enjoy her presence, the moment, and it's not like you're running towards the finish line. But I found that is a far more efficient way to conduct yourself in respect to sexual energy, as opposed to cutting yourself off from this power, which is a non-optimal way to transmute. I do think that, I'm going to propose something to you, which is a theory, an idea that you can't actually fight temptation. Instead, you can only design against it. So if female attraction or temptation is an outcome to be mitigated, let's design systems in order to approach it. The first one is a very popular one, which is the idea of lowering gaze. This is a fairly religious and spiritual colored idea. Energy is given and received through eye contact. Actively looking for attraction and temptation is giving your energy to the vices you've been seeking to escape so long. I personally wear sunglasses in most social places if I'm trying to exercise this particular method. I don't actually have them with me, but I've got kind of fairly dark tints that kind of help me avoid marketing interest. That's another way to put it. Keep micro expressions neutral, non-inviting. Don't match flirtatious tones or body language. Move with purpose, less idle talk, more quiet. A word you can use to describe what we're kind of trying to explain here is the Stoic. Man, a few words. Very grounded, very on his path, on his mission, conscientious, and not seeking anything outside himself for an inner sense of completion. And I think that's a very, very powerful energy to keep. The second is to move out the first three chakras. This runs congruent with a lot of the things that I say, but most men live their entire lives trapped in the first three. In survival, the root. So will I have enough money to pay my bills? Will I have food in my belly to keep myself healthy and strong? Pleasure, which is, again, only number 2 on the ladder. And I'm not going to pass that out any more than it needs to be. And also power in the solar plexus. These are dominions of lust, greed and fear, and also ego. Primal energies that make you reactive instead of sovereign. Sovereign being one of the key words that we want to instill and be very, very congruent and consistent with in our day-to-day. When you experience female attraction, that energy activates those lower centers. The goal isn't to fight it, it's actually to transcend it, from the loins to the lungs, desire to direction, heat to light. How do we do this? Breathe upwards, no surprises there. Again, all of this is available on my Patreon. It's like $5 a month, very, very cheap, and you get access to my entire breathwork library. All my, the majority of my books. I think you get like 2 free books straight off the bat. I think there's nearly 300, 400 members in there. So again, forever grateful if you're already a part of it. But this is practical application here, guys. It's not enough to just theorize and ruminate over the things that I'm saying. And once you experience it, by the way, it's kind of like Pandora's box is open and you can't go back to the previous versions of yourself. Like when you learn female nature, you can't unsee it. So when arousal or temptation hits, don't indulge it or suppress it. Circulate it through the microcosmic orbit. There are specific breathwork guides on Patreon to show you how to do this. Take deep, slow breaths. Visualize energy rising from the base to your heart or to your head. This is sexual alchemy in motion. And we start to integrate maybe some more advanced techniques with pelvic floor contraction and relaxation, diaphragmatic cadence also mirroring that contraction and relaxation, and of course the spinal breathing and intrathecal or intracranial pressure, where the pituitary and the pineal sit in the crystal palace, as some of the occult or esoteric circles would coin it. But it's just the place that your pineal and pituitary sit, bathed in your CSF, which is your cerebral spinal fluid. And you can get some really good insights, intuition, precognition, some creepy stuff. Well, I wouldn't say creepy. Some otherworldly stuff. Enter the throat and the crown. So speak truth, meditate, create art. I think the first one really is undervalued. I think that a lot of temptation can be mitigated if you're first and foremost honest before any escalation happens. I have more recently, I've only been in Bangkok for about a week and a half, but I did meet somebody at the park, and we went on a date. And I don't know why I say, because it goes kind of contrary to what you've been taught and learned in regards to escalation and intimacy. But I think the topic got brought up in regards to intimacy, and I just said, in a maybe more socially acceptable way, that intimacy isn't something that I rush into, especially when getting to know somebody. And it almost feels, again, like contrary to what you've been told, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Some thunder there. Because it's almost like you take intimacy off the table. It's like you become the girl on the date who always says to you, oh, by the way, we're not having sex tonight. We're not having sex the next day or whatever, you know? But I kind of like it because it's my first time exploring this particular exercise, and it keeps your frame, which is really, really strange, because then she gets curious. I mean, think about it. If you put yourself in her perspective, what guy has ever said, by the way, I know we're getting to know each other, been on 1 or 2 or 3 dates, but sexual intimacy, yeah, I'm going to take that off the table for now. It's kind of, what? This doesn't make sense. I control intimacy. I control access to it. He doesn't control. Why would he say that? You know? So it puts you in this really interesting frame, and it keeps your power. It really does. Especially if you're trying to court somebody who's particularly conscientious and let's say elevated more than the average woman. So speak your truth, meditate, create art. That's another really valuable one for me, is whatever your work, whatever your occupation, whatever you're doing, you need to understand and frame it in the context of you're not working as a means to create an income. You are facilitating greater and greater iterations of piece of art. And I don't care if you're, a copywriter or if you're an accountant. There is a way that you can shift your perspective to be seen it, to see it from an artistic expression. And that's where natural transmutation happens. It's where energy becomes expression and inspiration instead of addiction. That the energy that once wanted to release now radiates. So that's the kind of creative inner glow that a lot of people may feel rather than visually perceive. But I know it feels a little bit ironic because a lot of people are practicing SR, celibacy, abstinence, for the perspective of gaining female attraction as opposed to mitigating it. But too much of a good thing. I think maybe this video is only for a select few people, but sometimes it can be more of a hindrance than it can be something that you seek with all your heart and all your mind. And you understand that, like adult material was once a crutch for you, so too does promiscuity, so too does one-night stands. And I'm sure I don't need to explain anymore. No theories, facts. Speak soon.